Hunger is still a very big problem all over the world. In 2021, they broke all previous records according to the Global Report on Food Crisis, GRFC. In 2022, the GRFC found that close to 193 million people in 53 countries and territories were severely food insecure and needed help right away. This is almost 40 million more people than in 2020 when the previous high was reached, as reported in the GRFC 2021. The world's food supply is in danger. Let's start by setting the scene. Access to food is obviously a top priority for the millions of Ukrainians who are in the middle of this tragic invasion. So let's start by acknowledging that. But the war in Ukraine also threatens to mess up the food system all over the world, not just where the fighting is happening. When we look at the global food supply chain as a whole, we can see that this conflict is shaking important parts of the system that was already in trouble. In the past, supply and demand scenarios in the global food system were mostly based on weather and other supply-related events. In the past few years, the global pandemic has put the food system to the test and in many ways shown how strong it is. But now we are in an unthinkable situation. A war of this size in Europe, near the Black Sea, which is a key hub for food supplies, especially wheat and fertilizers. The food supply chain is beginning to shake because of this instability. It's hard to know all of the effects, but it's clear that this crisis will have knock-on effects on other food-producing countries like Brazil. Russia and Belarus are important for exporting fertilizer, which is the most important factor for farmers around the world when it comes to crop yield. Since late 2020, high prices for agricultural goods and fertilizers have been causing problems that haven't been solved. This event has also happened at a time when these problems haven't been solved. For example, corn prices have been well over $5 per bushel since early 2021, which is now well over a year ago. Even though there have been efforts to improve the global food supply and we have seen a lot of resilience in the past few years, we are still very worried. In some ways, it seems like the world is not ready for the crisis that is happening right now. China is the only exception. Since 2008, China has increased its strategic reserves by over 70%, which is a lot. But a lot of other markets around the world are not as ready. Updates as of May 2022. With everything that's happening on a global scale, the big question is, what is the status of food shortage in the second quarter of 2022? But before we continue, go ahead and click the subscribe and like buttons. It takes a lot to make these videos. Your small actions tell YouTube to keep promoting our videos. Also tell us in the comments section, what are your thoughts about the global food shortage? Thanks. Now back to the video. So here's the ugly truth. Food insecurity is getting worse in many countries, which is reversing years of progress and making it harder to reach the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Even though the pandemic cut incomes and messed up supply chains, both chronic and acute hunger were on the rise. This was due to many things such as war, poor economic conditions, natural disasters, climate change, and pests. The effects of the war in Ukraine add to the risk to global food security. Food prices are likely to stay high for the foreseeable future, which is likely to put millions more people in a state of severe food insecurity. This brief looks at how food insecurity is getting worse and what the World Bank has done to help. As of May 5th, 2022, the agricultural price index is up 41% from January 2021. Corn and grain prices are up 54% and 60% respectively, compared to January 2021, while rice prices are down about 14%. According to the World Bank's April 2022 Commodity Markets Outlook, the Ukraine conflict has altered global trade, production, and consumption patterns in ways that will keep prices at historically high levels until the end of 2024, exacerbating food security and inflation. Many countries are experiencing high retail food price inflation as a result of labor shortages, a sharp increase in fertilizer prices, currency devaluations, and other factors. People in low and middle-income countries are more affected by rising food prices because they spend a larger portion of their income on food than people in high-income countries. World Bank aid. So what is the World Bank doing to help elevate the situation? Anxious to help alleviate hunger and strengthen food systems, the World Bank has launched a series of short and long-term interventions. Projects that have received short and long-term funding include, but are not limited to, the following. An emergency action plan in Bangladesh gave US dollars 87.8 million in cash transfers to 407,000 vulnerable dairy and poultry producers. The money was used to buy personal safety equipment, agricultural equipment, and 64 mobile veterinary clinics. The World Bank realigned its portfolio in Bhutan to assist immediate food delivery and long-term food production through inputs and irrigation. Food assistance was provided to 437,000 vulnerable people in Chad, both in urban and rural areas, through the free distribution of food kits. Poor and vulnerable smallholder farmers were given seeds and small agricultural equipment to prepare for the upcoming growing season. The Resilient Productive Landscape Project in Haiti raised emergency funds to help over 16,000 farmers access seeds and fertilizer to ensure 2 harvest seasons. On the ground in India, women's self-help groups stepped in to help meet COVID-19 advisories among rural communities. The World Bank funded National Rural Livelihoods Mission, helped organize community kitchens and restock food supplies. These 15-year-old self-help groups draw on the abilities of 62 million Indian women. These are just some. The World Bank is continuously doing everything to support all the affected countries to aid food insecurity. How do we move forward? It is clear that the war in Ukraine could have some bad effects on food security around the world. Even worse news comes from the latest report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change about how the food system will be affected. Hunger, poverty, and instability are on the way for billions of people because of war, COVID-19, climate change, and the rising cost of food. Truth is, we don't need more dire warnings. What are we going to do? This is the most important question. In addition to providing urgent humanitarian aid to those in need, the international community can take 5 concrete steps to ease the food crisis in the short term and build a more sustainable and resilient global food system for the years to come. First, we must strive to protect free commerce, which is essential for food security. In early 2020, nations reacted to the pandemic by hoarding crucial medical supplies, eroding global cooperation. Second, even if Ukrainian farmers can sow their season's crops in the next weeks, the world is likely to confront shortages. We have to quickly and sustainably grow output in other parts of the world. Third, governments should cooperate in sharing data and determine when and how to release food from national stockpiles and granaries. National stocks can help cut food prices and alleviate humanitarian disasters when handled wisely. Fourth, we should provide the most vulnerable communities around the world with the safety nets they need to survive the crisis, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa and the Middle East. A large package of assistance to the most vulnerable nations is also included to help them adapt to climate change. The IMF and World Bank spring meetings provide a chance for the world to unite on this objective. Finally, the current crisis must spur an immediate shift to a stronger, more sustainable, and more equitable global food system. This system would be considerably less reliant on fertilizers and pesticides, and make existing ones more effective and less environmentally damaging. It would be more circular and regenerative. It would waste far less, and it would be designed to offer healthy diets the world needs. This would need drastic cuts in meat consumption in wealthy nations, as well as redirected food and agricultural subsidies.